Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite sequences from mainly action and thriller movies, but they pop up on various TV shows, especially in the 90s. Now, you still see this today in Avenger movies, and you've seen it before in the late 70s, early 80s, and I think it was in Vertigo that Hitchcock sort of perfected it or did the first time where you could see a shot like this and it fell. But what I'm talking about are the overhead hang for your life POV shots, where one person sort of slips or falls or jumps up and reaches somebody else and they're caught and they're hanging for their life. But my favorite part of that shot is when it's the overhead POV shot and you kind of see the person hanging, like the camera is above them eagle eye, you see the person holding and another person hanging. I don't know why I'm such a weirdo, but I've always loved those shots. I mean, they're super symbolic, they don't have to be, but often they're symbolic of a moment that like the characters have to have a certain sort of trust in each other, or they're just thrilling to watch. But yes, I sure do love these overhead hang for your life POV shots. It does happen in a variety of TV shows and movies, and as I was researching, I realized it happens in a lot of kid-oriented films. I realized a whole bunch, and I'm going to do my absolute favorite sequences in movies and TV shows on this episode, but there might be a future episode down the road where I talk about just, maybe do like my top 5 kids movies that have these shots in them. Because like I said, I'm a giant weirdo that loves these shots. So just stay tuned as we dive in. Please keep in mind that there will, of course, be some spoilers, maybe mild, some major, because these shots usually happen in a more climatic moment. Although one movie had this as their opening shot, and it is one of the best all-time openings to an action movie of all time. And if you are enjoying what you see, as always, please give me a like or a comment below, tell me what you think, and please, please always consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's get started. One of the earliest movies for me that I can remember seeing the overhead hanging shot is Tim Burton's Batman. After unleashing poisonous gas onto the citizens of Gotham City, the Joker has whisked Vicky Vale all the way to the top of the cathedral. Batman is in pursuit, narrowly making it all the way to the dizzying top platform of the cathedral. After villain and hero fight, it appears that Batman has knocked the Joker over the edge. As Vicky and Batman peer over, the Joker quickly grabs their arms and flips the couple over the edge. The next moment we hear the Joker laughing and see Batman and Vicky hanging impossibly high over the streets below. It is a beautiful and breathtaking shot. The Joker seems to have the upper hand as a helicopter with a rope ladder glides in to rescue the beloved villain. He teasingly reaches out with a fake hand to help Vicky, but it soon breaks off and she falls into empty space. Luckily, Batman catches her and swings her up to his other side. The Joker smashes brick after brick of the ledge Batman and Vicky desperately hang onto. The Joker grabs onto the helicopter rope ladder and begins his ascent away from the tower. Batman uses this moment to shoot a wire around the Joker's ankle and a stone gargoyle statue attached to the cathedral. The weight of this brings the Joker to his screaming death. Unfortunately, as Batman and Vicky try to climb back up, the bricks holding them finally give way and they plummet down the same path as the Joker. As usual, Batman has just the right item in his tool belt to save the day. Next up is Cliffhanger. The opening to Cliffhanger is one of the most shockingly memorable from 90s action films. The spectacular views in this film can only be appreciated if you are not afraid of heights. And if you are an inexperienced climber like Sarah, you might also want to avoid climbing up these same heights. In Cliffhanger, Sylvester Stallone is part of an air rescue team. He is a fearless climber, and in the opening scene he has to help his buddy and his buddy's girlfriend Sarah get back down from the top of a mountain. Unfortunately, there is a chasm between those needing rescue and the rescue helicopter. As Sarah takes her turn going across the rescue rope, the buckle breaks on her harness and she is left dangling over thousands of feet of empty air. Stallone swings out frantically to help her and catches Sarah's hand at the last second, but he can't hang on forever, and there is nowhere to pull her up and no time for anybody to come out to assist. Slowly, she slips out of her glove to fall to her death below. Next, let's talk about Jurassic Park. 1993's mega hit Jurassic Park was known at the time for its amazing and groundbreaking effects. Full of thrills and wonder, the events of Jurassic Park led survivors Grant and Ellie with youngsters Tim and Lex on a mad dash to bring up the remaining park security systems. Played by Ariana Richards, teen Lex manages to hack through the final computer obstacles. Unfortunately, two velociraptors soon break in and the foursome head up to the ceiling vents to escape. As they are crossing an escape, a velociraptor pops her head up right under Lex's ceiling floor panel. Lex screams as Grant kicks in the raptor's head, causing both the raptor and Lex to fall through the ceiling. The scene shifts to an overhead POV shot of Lex barely hanging on, while below we can see the raptor regaining its senses. Lex looks up in terror as she is grabbed by her friends and pulled up to safety just as the dinosaur leaps up to grab her. Baywatch. Now, this one from the original Baywatch series is absolutely one of my favorites. It is a scene from the Season 4 two-part episode Coronado del Sol. In it, some of the Baywatch lifeguards are staying at a hotel and one, Summer in particular, is affected by the haunted history of the hotel. Summer is haunted by a ghost that committed suicide there decades earlier. It was supposed to be a suicide pact with his married lover, also played by Nicole Eggert. Summer's similar appearance is what attracts Rupert the Ghost. However, his lover betrayed him and didn't jump. He eventually puts Summer into a trance, leading her out onto the balcony that he jumped from earlier to complete his pact. Her boyfriend Matt reaches her and tries to get her to come back, but she slips. The effects in this one are very outdated, as this was done for television and not a feature film. Still, it's one of my favorites as the dramatic level is exactly right, the symbolic emotions of Matt and Summer reaching out to each other, and then you have the supernatural force causing Summer to slip further. Only once Rupert's lover returns does he let go, allowing for Matt to finally save Summer. This one lasts a little longer, and unlike some of the others on this list, shows how Matt could actually pull her back to safety. Last Action Hero. The first of 3 Arnold Schwarzenegger films included on this list, Last Action Hero follows Austin O'Brien as Danny Madigan, an adolescent that loves going to the movies. His favorite film series follows the Jack Slater action flicks. With the aid of a magic ticket, Danny is able to join the real Jack Slater inside the film. Before coming back out into the real world and having his own meta experiences, Schwarzenegger gets his own POV overhead hanging scene in a shot-out glass elevator. The scene making this list finds Danny and Jack Slater on top of a movie theater at the premiere of the new Jack Slater film. The real Arnold is in the screening theater, while on the rooftop, the fictional Jack Slater is reliving his worst fictional moment as Danny has been grabbed by the villainous Ripper. The Ripper throws Danny off the roof, and Jack has to save him. Even as the rain pours down, Danny has managed to grab onto a building fixture as Jack has to rappel down a cable. Knowing that this is the real world, Danny has to take a leap of faith to trust Jack will catch him. Not only does Mr. Slater save Danny, he manages to fling the boy back up to the roof in safety. Richie Rich. In the last of his films as a child actor, Macaulay Culkin plays the richest boy in the world. I remember seeing this one in the theater. I was a Culkin fan, and the trailer had revealed that a hanging scene would be included. I was not disappointed. In the movie, Richie's parents have had their plane sabotaged by a villainous CFO. They manage to get saved, but are forced to reveal the location of the safe containing their most valuable treasures. Located in Mount Richmore, Richie and his parents manage to escape on the mountainside with their faces all carved out in the side. They are traveling on the giant-sized glasses of Richie's father when a rock-blasting laser snaps the glasses. Played by Christine Ebersole, Mrs. Rich slips off the glasses but is caught by her husband. She is swinging helplessly while being shot at. Her son Richie manages to grab her other hand, and father and son manage to swing Mrs. Rich to safety in her husband's broken mountainside mouth. Another exciting hang on for your life sequence, it becomes revealed that the Rich family are as bonded together as ever, and that no matter how much wealth they accumulate, their familial strength is always their biggest asset. Titanic. I have no shame in admitting that I saw Titanic in the theater 3 times when I was a 15-year-old girl. Boy. My favorite hang for your life sequence of all time was in another James Cameron film, and I'll discuss that later, but I was entranced by the story of Titanic since I was a small kid, so there were many reasons that I wanted to see the movie. But in the back of my mind, I hoped that being a James Cameron film that maybe there would be a hanging scene. I didn't see how it could happen and didn't hold out much hope. And then all of a sudden, Rose is on the stern of the ship contemplating suicide into the northern Atlantic. I don't mean to be insensitive, but when I saw her slip on her beaded dress and caught by Jack, I squealed. I mean, let's be real. I knew she would be all right. The movie ship was still over an hour away from hitting an iceberg, so I knew Rose was going to make it through this scene. Nevertheless, it's a terrific and breathtaking moment. Jack has already explained how awful the water is 9 stories below her, and the thought of either or both of them falling and being left in the ocean is pretty horrific. Obviously, 1997's Titanic has many amazing and heartbreaking moments, and a barrage of complicated action sequences. Still, for me personally, because of my strange love of these overhead POV shots, I was completely satiated by this scene, and I could just relax and enjoy the rest of the movie. And by enjoy, I mean cry and be irrevocably moved. Mannequin. 1987's Mannequin, starring Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall, sets itself apart from most of the other films on this list. Instead of the sequence being played from a precarious height, Cattrall's Emmy is dangling only a few inches above another kind of terrible drop. Only coming to life in front of her lover Jonathan, Emmy as a mannequin has been causing quite a bit of trouble for the store dresser. Everybody in his life that is trying to bring Jonathan down is intent on getting rid of what they perceive to be a dummy. Unsure of which specific mannequin she is, Emmy and a slew of other mannequins are set on a conveyor belt to be destroyed. She tips over the edge above a dangerous shredder just as Jonathan catches her. Unfortunately, this causes her to come to life and her weight significantly increases. Her feet are only inches above the cutters that, if they do not kill her, will certainly bring her immense pain. In addition to Emmy's weight, Jonathan has to contend with the additional obstacle of the conveyor belt still moving under his feet. Luckily, a factory worker sees Jonathan's side of this desperate situation and shuts off the machine. Timecop. A 1994 science fiction action film directed by Peter Hyams, Timecop lands somewhere between the Terminator and Back to the Future. Someone has figured out time travel. Jean-Claude Van Damme plays a detective assigned to enforce laws surrounding time travel. He accepts the job after losing his wife in a suspicious death. His wife is played by Mia Sara, and later on he gets a second chance at saving her. However, while his future self is fighting some of the bad guys, his younger self and wife are up on the roof dodging some other bad guys. In an exciting moment, younger Van Damme has been pushed off the roof and is hanging by a drain pipe. Mia Sara slips from her higher up space, slides down the roof, and is caught by Van Damme. The two can barely hang on as a thug tries to smash Van Damme's fingers. As they swing back and forth, Mia's character is ultimately able to get the upper hand on the bad guy, and the younger husband and wife are able to save each other. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. The fan favorite third installment of the A Nightmare on Elm Street series is one of those elusive horror sequels that seamlessly brings new characters together with old. Dream Warriors finds Heather Langenkamp's final girl, Nancy Thompson, coming to the aid of the last of the Elm Street kids. One in particular is Joey, played by Rodney Eastman. Joey is a former debate champ that has lost his ability to speak. His character is seduced into a coma and used as bait to bring Nancy and the remaining kids into the dream world controlled by Robert Englund's Freddy Krueger. Held over a fiery pit of tongue ropes, he is let go one bit at a time as Nancy and the teens rush in. Nancy dives and catches Joey just before the boy falls to his death. Nancy holds on to him as best she can, but she needs help. The other teens are unable to help as they have to dodge Freddy. Refusing to let go, Nancy and Joey slip further into the pit. Just before they tumble all the way in, Nancy is gripped by the powerful Kincaid. Portrayed by Ken Sagos, Kincaid hoists the two up and out of the pit back to temporary safety. One obstacle is overcome, but in this nightmare, they still have a ways to go. Eraser. This 1996 action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Vanessa Williams definitely requires a heavy suspension of disbelief for the audience, especially when it comes to Arnold's lead character John Kruger. I mean, not many can survive falling out of a plane with a broken and twisted parachute. Still, Eraser is a popcorn movie designed to appeal to audiences looking for the fun spectacle. Vanessa Williams portrays Lee Cullen, an executive placed into witness relocation program under the protection of John Kruger. Kruger unfortunately has been betrayed by those he trusts. Lee is eventually kidnapped and taken to the Baltimore docks. She and Kruger end up on a shipping container that becomes unstable as he fights the bad guys. When the container tilts, Lee slides down the length of the container and right over the edge. Kruger manages to catch her and the shot is perfect. He is still dodging the fight, while Lee swings below. He manages to pull her back on, but the sequence is not over. After making sure that Lee is hanging on safely to a fixed ladder, he releases the container from its hold, forcing it to fall away beneath everyone's feet. Lee is left hanging from a ladder in yet another magnificent overhead POV shot. Again, this movie definitely requires an open mind and imagination, but the special effects and overhead hang sequences are spot on. The Good Son. This is the second movie involving Macaulay Culkin to make this list. Like I said before, this type of special effect was something utilized quite a bit in the 1990s. Now, what's great about The Good Son is that this 1993 psychological horror film has two of these amazing sequences. Both are incredibly realistic and are utilized figuratively to emphasize the dramatic narrative. In the first overhead POV shot, we have been following Mark, played by Elijah Wood. Mark has just lost his mother to cancer, and his father has left him in the care of New England relatives. Mark's cousin Henry, played by Culkin, seems to be a run-of-the-mill adolescent. The two climb up to Henry's treehouse, located at least 30 or 40 feet up in a tree. Right before Mark reaches the landing, he reaches up to take Henry's hand right as a branch snaps underneath him. There is nothing between him and a nasty and potentially fatal fall than Henry's grip. Wide-eyed in fear, Mark looks up to Henry just as Henry creepily asks, "If I let you go, do you think you could fly?" Henry then pulls Mark to safety, but this is our first real look as the audience that something is off about Henry. The second and more striking hang for your life sequence occurs during the climax of the film. Mark has grown close to Henry's mother, played by Wendy Crewson. Susan is, however, having trouble believing that her son is a demented little bad seed. She is finally convinced when Henry cruelly tricks her and pushes her over the side of the cliff. She is saved by Mark, but has to climb back up just as the boys tumble over the edge of the cliff themselves. She catches the two boys, but there is no way she can save them both. As they hang helplessly from each of her arms, Susan has to make a choice as to which boy to save. This is certainly the Sophie's Choice of 90s psychological thrillers. Henry has the better grip as he sweetly coaxes his mother that he needs her other hand. Meanwhile, Mark has been caught more awkwardly by his left hand and is slowly but surely slipping further down from her upper arm, to her wrist, to her hand. Just as Mark is about to slip away, Susan makes her choice. No matter what people made of this evil kid film, this moment will remain vividly in the audience's minds. Honorable mentions. Before we talk about my own personal all-time favorite hang for your life shot, there are some honorable mentions I'd like to discuss. These ones have some intense and great sequences, but do not really have the specific overhead POV. The first is 1986 Labyrinth, directed by Jim Henson. As teen Sarah is searching the labyrinth for her baby brother, she comes to the bog of eternal stench. The rickety bridge falls beneath her and she clings desperately to a tree branch. Directed by John Huston, the second honorable mention is 1982's Annie. As the plucky little heroine climbs a raised drawbridge, she finds herself dangling high up over the river, trying to escape the villainous rooster. Another honorable mention is 1978's Superman. Directed by Richard Donner, Margot Kidder's Lois Lane is scheduled to take a helicopter ride off the Daily Planet. Unfortunately, the helicopter gets caught up in some wires and crashes off the side of the building. Lois slips out of one of the doors and hangs for her life by nothing more than a seatbelt. And the movie with my all-time favorite hang for your life overhead POV shot is True Lies. True Lies is the third movie on this list starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. True Lies was a movie I could not wait to see in theaters. I was lucky enough that my older brother Mike took me to see it on opening day. The trailer for this film contained several overhead POV shots, so I just had to see it. There are three main sequences in True Lies containing these shots. The first finds Arnold's character Harry Tasker on a horse chasing after a terrorist. The two end up on a roof, but Harry's horse decides jumping from one building to another is unacceptable. The horse abruptly puts on the brakes, causing Harry to flip over the side of the building with only the reins to hang on to. It's a terrific night shot showing the standard but amazing stunts for which Cameron's films are known. But my hands down favorite hang for your life overhead POV shot moment occurs later on in True Lies. The sequence I am referring to is one of the most spectacular sequences from any action movie ever. Harry Tasker is a secret agent living a double life. When his wife Helen, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis in a Golden Globe award-winning role, finds out that he has been living this double life, she is whisked up into an adventure beyond her imagination. The sequence begins with Helen in a limo ride on the 7-mile bridge departing the Florida Keys. Helen has been taken hostage by Tia Carrere's Juno Skinner, with both women believing that Harry has been killed in an explosion. Fortunately for Helen, she has begun to discard her ordinary legal secretary life and has started to transition into her own strong warrior woman persona. She waits for her moment and strikes. Helen and Juno begin a mad fight for Juno's gun. Helen gets the upper hand when she brains Juno over the head with a champagne bottle. The gun has exited the sunroof, and Helen goes to reach for it where she discovers that Harry is above her in a helicopter. Her excitement is fleeting as she realizes that the bridge has been destroyed up ahead and the limo is heading right for this newly formed gap. The film up until this point has become a test for Helen to discover whether or not she can trust Harry now that she has learned he has had to lie to her for their entire marriage. The final test is whether she can let go of everything and believe in his ability to catch her. As the limo is reaching its final few feet before going over, Helen looks up at Harry and she decides to trust him. Their hands clasp together and she is whisked up out of the limo and soaring over the broken bridge and water below. She screams in disbelief at her situation, but we know everything is going to be all right as the scene dissolves into the bright sunlight. Fun fact, Jamie Lee Curtis actually performed this stunt, and on her 35th birthday no less. Director James Cameron convinced her by doing the stunt himself and she decided to go for it. It's an amazing shot that not only looks terrific, but symbolizes that the marriage between Helen and Harry is going to survive. They needed both this literal and figurative leap of faith. But there is still one more member of the Tasker family that needs to have her faith restored in her father. That is, of course, Dana Tasker, played by Eliza Dushku. Dana has also been taken hostage, but escapes with a vital key needed by the terrorists to complete their plan. She escapes out into a boom crane high above the city streets below, leading, of course, into the third overhead hang for your life POV shot. Dana has been inching further and further out, with the head terrorist Aziz, played by Art Malik, in pursuit of her. Just as she is running out of options, she slips and is hanging dangerously with 0 options left. That is, until her dad shows up in a Marine Harrier positioned just below her. But before she can take her own leap of faith, Aziz shoots at Harry, and this causes the tail of the Harrier to hit the boom, and Dana slips even more precariously. Just as she can hang on no longer, she lets go and lands roughly but safely onto the Harrier. That'll do it for this list. I sincerely hope you all enjoyed. I don't know why I'm such a big weirdo that loves these sequences so much, but I can't be the only one because they were so popular in the 90s. They are thrilling to look at, but they also usually provide a great visual representation of some sort of character development. But again, thanks for watching another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people really do talk about really everything. What are some of your favorite, though, hang for your life overhead POV moments, or just hang for your life shots in films? Please comment below, hit the like button, or subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.